Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another season of in-depth interviews about important global issues here on CNN Greece. Next up, Afghanistan and the rise to power once again for the Taliban, a development that puts the country's economic prospects into question, but also one that emerges as extremely discouraging for women whose rights many are afraid will be violated despite assurances for a smooth transition. Lina Abirafeh is a global women's rights expert with decades of experience worldwide. And for the last 6 years, she has been serving as the executive director of the Arab Institute for Women at the Lebanese American University. She will help us discuss the next day in the country and how could women's rights be protected. But let's first take a look at the revealing struggle of women under the new rule in this CNN story, and we'll be right back with Lina.
In happier times, Taranum Saidi saved children from abuse. Paid for it with profits from a construction company she built. Now she is in hiding from the Taliban, in fear for her life.
They
are trying to threaten us and execute us secretly, as they did to many of my female friends.
Her crime, in the Taliban's eyes, protest, taking to the streets 2 weeks ago, demanding equal rights. She was beaten and bruised. Ever since, Taliban death threats have stalked her. So much fear, she now hopes, if death comes, it's fast.
I'm not afraid of death, but I wish when they find me, they kill me quickly. If they torture me first, then they will kill me without any honor. Everyone wants to die with dignity.
Before the Taliban, she was well known, popular, ran for parliament, might have been elected, if not for endemic corruption. She hoped her high profile might save her. Now has no idea what to do.
How long can I be brave? How long do we have to fight? In fact, fight with whom? With whom to talk? With whom to discuss? We are in darkness with no way to get to a brighter future.
Across the country, many more women like Saidi hide in fear of the Taliban. They share older news social media posts that they say show arbitrary abuse, that are both hard to verify and the Taliban deny. For now, though, they are the only way the women can protest their plight.
Everything is at stake right now because we are actually facing a situation that we are so disliked by a group of people who are actually running this country. They can't even look at us.
Mahbouba Siraj is Afghanistan's highest profile women's rights activist. She returned from the US when the Taliban were ousted 2 decades ago. She won't leave again, she says. Will stay here to defend women, get the world's attention.
They're going to make problems. They're going to raise their voices. They're going to start, the world is becoming a very small place now.
These are brutal guys with guns who turn them on crowds.
It's true. But for how long? They're going to be killing everybody? Is that what they want to do?
Saidi is facing an agonizing choice. She is the breadwinner. Her brother's family and the abused children she rescued depend on her.
They need me, so I need to be strong. And that's really hard.
But to stay is to risk death.
We tried a lot to have a better Afghanistan, to have a better life, to have a better future. In fact, me and my friends didn't expect that one day we will be forced to leave our own country. But they took everything from us.
What happens now, she says, depends on her calls for help to the US, the UK, Canada and others. If she does leave, Saidi vows to fight on.
Lina, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Now, as we saw, we have a new Taliban regime that has closed the government ministry dedicated to women's affairs. It's also preventing female students from returning to schools and universities, and female workers in an array of professions have been told to stay at home until further notice. Are you surprised, or do you think this is a regime that looks remarkably like the one that ruled over the country until it was toppled by the US-led invasion 20 years ago?
Unfortunately, it looks very much the same. So, you know, the Taliban occupied Kabul for the 5-year period from 1996 to 2001 in all of Afghanistan. And what happened was that women were banned from all aspects of public life. No school, no work. You heard all the stories. We know them, unfortunately, all too well. And this is looking like more of the same. The problem is that we've got a young generation of women who have no experience, no recollection, no lived experience with the Taliban regime, having to live under that kind of draconian rule. So young girls who were going to school, who assumed that it was their right to be free, to be educated, to play, to study, to work, are now being denied those rights, and we're losing an entire generation. So it's very troubling, yes.
You know, we know that almost 2/3 of the girls in the country have been out of school even before the Taliban, and I think it's 8 out of 10 girls that have experienced abuse. Are you afraid that this will mean that women are less likely to understand the risks they face or how to mitigate them?
I think Afghan women understand very well the risks they have faced and will continue to face. The country's been in conflict for 4 decades, with Soviet occupation, with the Civil War, with the Taliban, with even the US occupation. Insecurity has been the norm for these women. So even in spaces that were deemed safe, Kabul, for instance, other major cities, the rest of the country is still quite rural and has been fairly conservative. So girls accessing school or women accessing work or being present in public life, in political life, has always come with risks. At the same time, Afghan women know very well how to mitigate those risks. They've been doing it forever. They have organizations and groups, and even as individual activists and feminists are ready once again to establish safe networks, underground schools, find systems of services and support for themselves and for their daughters, because they have no choice and they're not willing to sacrifice their lives yet again.
We know that the war that was built in part as a fight for the rights and dignity for the women. Why do you think this wasn't achieved, Lina?
First of all, we didn't actually listen to Afghan women on the ground. We didn't listen to what they wanted or what they needed. Calls for liberation came from outside. They didn't reflect the realities or the needs of Afghan women who were living there and already doing the work. You know, all of these things, women's rights, feminism, these activist intentions didn't need to be imported and imposed. They already existed in the country. So what we should have done and did not adequately do is build on the existing women's networks, women's movements, feminist movements in the country, support them to raise their voices, give them the tools and resources they need to be able to do the work that they were doing before we got there, and they will continue to do long after we're gone. So I think now we actually have an opportunity to do that again. Unfortunately, we have to do it right this time. I've worked in over 20 countries in conflict, and I've seen time and again how women galvanize. They know how to set up the systems and services. They know who needs support. They know how to get people help, who needs help, how to help them, what needs doing. They will work incredibly hard to support themselves and their families. They are fighters who fight for their own survival. So let's not make it difficult for them. Let's support them in the ways that they need to be supported, and they will tell us how. They've been doing so all along.
Sure. So you completed your PhD from the London School of Economics, and saw your book, Gender and International Aid in Afghanistan, the Politics and Effects of Intervention, published based on your research. Now, I understand there's going to be a newer version of that book. How has your research come along regarding that new book?
Well, the original research and the degree itself actually was born from my work, was born from my time in Afghanistan. I call myself an accidental academic because I developed this interest purely because I was living it and doing it and wanted to find a way to do it better. So I moved to Afghanistan in 2002 and I stayed there for 4 years and did the first part of my PhD at least while I was living and working in the country, running an NGO for women. So trying to find ways to better support women, to better listen to their needs. And that's how the degree came about, and the book was just an offshoot of that. And now, 2 decades later, it's a chance to complete the story. It's a chance to highlight the voices of Afghan women who, like I said, have been doing the work all along. It is a chance to showcase women's agency. It's a chance to really look at the big picture, to zoom out and say, well, what happened in these 2 decades? What did we do? What did they need? What could we do better now? And I hope it brings some learning from the experience. It certainly brings an enormous amount of firsthand data, the voices of Afghan women and men as well that I spoke to in the time I was there, that I spoke to for years afterwards. Many I'm still in touch with. So it really highlights their voices and perspectives and experiences to tell us what we should be doing now.
Well, Lina, good luck with your book. And thank you for being a strong voice for women all over the world and for joining us today from New York for this segment.
Thank you very much.